Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. Today, we are discussing news coming out of D23, primarily surrounding Thunderbolts, Captain America Brave New World, and Andor Season 2. There's a lot of other news coming out of D23, but we're kind of going to focus it to that right now because I think those are the kind of big stories here, or the bigger stories here. First off, let's look at Thunderbolts. I think this is kind of the one that I think has the least to say about it, funnily enough, in that I think what we've seen in the trailer that was released for D23 Brazil was really what we've seen before. Don't get me wrong, it was very well put together, and I think it's a trailer that will definitely, and has definitely begun to hype people for the movie. I think a lot of people who weren't perhaps sold on the idea before are a little bit more sold on it now. But I still don't know where this movie's really going. You do have Sentry in play with Bob, who they're kind of trying to be elusive with for the main line audience. And then you have, of course, Valentina. But are they the real villains? Is there something else going on? I think this is a movie that is going to be steeped in kind of mystery until it comes out. Now, that is not a bad thing. I'm actually very happy about that. I think too many movies have become predictable, especially in the last sort of 10 years or so, sort of because of the MCU effect. Because Marvel, sadly, because they're adapting from comics, you have this sort of knock-on effect where it's similar to adapting a book, right? You're adapting a comic, so people kind of know what's going to happen. Now, Marvel has always kind of switch things up as they can where they're able, but if they're following a storyline, you're going to have some of those same beats show up, and they're kind of predicted, especially character-wise. A lot of the characters that could show up in a potential show are usually predicted, and it's usually seen beforehand. I think they've kind of gotten better at that more recently. I think now that the MCU has become such its own entity, you have a little bit more of a move room with that. You kind of inform the comics as much as the comics inform you, but I do think that's a big issue that you have with something like this compared to like when the next Star Wars movie comes out. Literally, the possibilities could be endless as to what they do, because nothing's being written prior to that movie, if that makes sense. Now, don't get me wrong, that can still be as much disappointment. So that's where I guess I'm trying to say, being open doesn't necessarily mean good or bad. Being sort of unknown to the audience going into it, again, doesn't mean it's good or bad. I mean, there's many movies that are historically accurate, that are really good movies, and you know what happens. You've read the history book, right? But it can still be good. And I think Thunderbolt is one that I think is going to be good. I just can't quantify it yet, and so I don't want to sit and say, oh, I think this is a really good idea, I think this is a really good idea, because it really does depend, especially for certain characters, well, most of the characters really, because we have a lot of those characters who are legacy characters. I mean, Bucky goes way, way back in the MCU. Yelena has now become a relatively important character in the universe, and you've got Red Guardian as well. But then like characters like Ghost, who didn't really get much of an appearance beyond Ant-Man, of course, and then Taskmaster, who has even less of a real persona and hasn't really been featured much in the trailer either. It's going to be interesting to see how they use those characters, and Valentina as well, obviously being bigged up as this kind of sort of pseudo Nick Fury. Is she going to live up to that, or if not, is she going to give us something so dynamically different that we really enjoy it, right? I mean, Val, I've personally enjoyed so far, but I'm interested to see what they're going to do with her going forward that makes her kind of this figure that they kind of seem to be building towards, or have been building towards for this movie. Is she actually the bad guy, or is she like, how much of it is a Amanda Waller situation versus is it like actually she's been kind of underhanded in how she's done it, but there's been some reason for it. So I'm really interested to see what happens there, but I can't really quantify that movie at the moment. But the trailer was good. I suggest you go and have a look at it if you have the time, for sure. And some of the parts were funny. There was some Marvelisms in there as usual. There's one part where David Harbour's Red Guardian is kind of elucidating on the fact he's Red Guardian, and it's like, who's Red Santa, or who's Mr. Santa, or something. I forget how it goes, but that was kind of like, and then she kind of he lets Val know who he is, and she goes, and it's like, okay, at some points you do kind of understand the Marvel humor criticism. I think one of that is one of the examples, but generally I do like Marvel's humor within reason, and I think sometimes they just don't hit the mark, and then sometimes they do and they don't. So there, I kind of think that's really it for Thunderbolts. I don't think that I don't think they've like wildly changed how we're going to perceive that movie when it comes out. But I do think the trailer is something that's going to drive people to actually go and watch it more than they might have previously. Also, at the end of the trailer, they talk about the name Thunderbolts and that they can't use that name. And I'm wondering what that means regards the universe. Is there something else that's going on here, or is there going to be like a joke about the fact that the movie prior, because obviously Captain America is going to come out before Thunderbolts, that Thunderbolt Ross is the president, so we can't use that name. Is there going to be some kind of joke like that? We'll see. We'll see how that pans out. Now, that's a perfect segment, of course, into Captain America. And I have to be honest, this movie has been something I've been looking forward to anyways. I know there's been a lot of controversy around the movie, and I know a lot of people are saying that the movie in screen testing hasn't been doing well. Now, I never really take any of that at face value. A lot of people didn't like, for example, Multiverse of Madness, but I do enjoy that film. There's some issues with Wanda's character, etc., but I do enjoy that film, and I know a lot of people didn't. I also really like the Eternals, and a lot of people say they don't like Eternals. So, with that in mind, we're gonna kind of keep a fresh palette, so to speak, as we go into Captain America: Brave New World. And I've got to be honest, this trailer, if I liked the idea of the movie before, I think the idea of the movie has gone up a level now, because what they've actually done is quite interesting. They have set the super soldier serum as the reason that things are going wrong, so to speak. It looks as if, by the fact that, and you have to remember that in the MCU, Hulk and subsequent Hulks, as you'll see by Red Hulk, is a derivative of the super soldier serum. Emil Blonsky, what they were doing there, they were trying to replicate something similar to that. And so there's issues there that cause things to go sideways, really. And because of that, what you actually have is a movie that focuses on the idea that both the Hulks and super soldiers, like Isaiah Bradley, who is the kind of the initial focus of the trailer, are being manipulated by the world powers. It's basically America's secret weapon, so to speak, is being used against them. I think that's a really intelligent way of using a plot device, because what it does is it puts the heroes that you know, or the characters that you know, like General Ross and Isaiah Bradley, into a situation where they're vulnerable. But it also suggests that this is a problem for a new age Captain America, because if this was Captain America from previous, would he be able to somehow negate this effect, or would it take him too? And suddenly you think, right, okay, I see where they're going with this. They're saying in this story it had to be Sam. Sam is the only Captain America who could do this. Even Isaiah, who in the comics was kind of implied to be like a proto Captain America, he couldn't, he wouldn't be able to deal with it either. And so you get this situation where a lot of people have complained, and I kind of rightly so, I think, to some degree, that they haven't really put the drive on Sam as Captain America. And I disagree with the Captain Carter comments a lot of the time, because I think that is so separate from what's going on with prior Falcon into Captain America with Sam. But I think I do get that. I think I could have understood why they might have wanted to see more of Sam prior to now. So what I kind of like what they've done is, with the concept of the movie, is they've said, yeah, we kind of get what you're saying. Actually, what we're doing here is saying that, any of the other Captain Americas who or Captain America equivalents who could have come into play here would have actually messed this all up in one way or another. And I think that's really interesting as as a concept. People have been kind of trying to find this way of saying, oh, this is my Captain America, that this is your Captain America, and I think that's kind of addressed in the trailer too, with General Ross, obviously played by Harrison Ford in this one. He notes that he says, you're not Steve Rogers, and I think that's the most important line in the movie, actually. Yeah, he's not. And I think, in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it was about Sam sort of feeling like he was right for the legacy of Steve. I think this movie is sort of trying to pivot that, not remove that, not dissolve that, so to speak. I don't know what the right word would be in this moment, but like, what I think it's trying to say is, you're worthy of it, not because you want to try and be like Steve Rogers. You're worthy of it because you were the right person to do this job at this time, and you inspired people to do what they needed to do. And I think that's the essence of Captain America, right? I always think of that comment from Stan Lee regards the reason that Peter Parker was initially in the spider suit, and his identity is so kind of enshrouded, is because he is meant to be seen as an everyman, right? Like, anyone can be Spider-Man. And whilst Captain America wasn't that initially, I think the idea that the driving kind of American superhero, so to speak, the superhero that if you say America and superhero, the first one you would think of is probably, well, you might think Iron Man, but generally, other than that, you're going to think Captain America, right? And so I think what they've kind of smartly done is they've pivoted the idea that, well, if anyone can be Spider-Man, and they've done it with loads of characters obviously since, but I think the idea here is kind of exploring the same thing. If anyone can be Spider-Man, can anyone be Captain America? And I think, if America, sadly, obviously there's certain politics going on right now, if America is meant to be this place that represents all different races, creeds, nationalities, religions, then Captain America should as well. And I think that's what this movie is trying to demonstrate, alongside all these other problems, by saying there's a very real problem that is solvable by someone who is not Steve Rogers, and really only solvable by him. And I think that's a really smart way of kind of presenting that idea in a new light. I think a lot of people think in power levels and stuff like that, but it's like Superman, right? If you take Superman and you put kryptonite in front of him, he can't do his job, but another superhero could, or another person as Superman who maybe wasn't from Krypton could. That would be weird, admittedly, but like, why would they be Superman? Why would they be wearing the S, not the S, the house, the whatever they call it, the symbol of Zor-El? Is it a symbol of L? Sorry, not Zor-El. You know what I meant. You get where I'm coming from. Sorry, I'm not quite as big a DC person, but I'm just trying to give another example because Kryptonite came to mind. Yeah, I think this is a really smart way to go, and I'm hoping that the movie turns out well. And obviously Red Hulk, I really do. I mean, you can't see it right now, but Red Hulk is one of my characters I'm very interested in. I think it's so fascinating to have a character like Hulk is a character unto himself, where he hates his other side. But imagine being a person who hates a Hulk beforehand, right? General Ross hates the idea of Hulks. He always has in the comics. He's always hated them, always wanted rid of them, always wanted to cage Bruce. And then you have him become the very thing he hates. It's very Senator Kelly in X-Men. So we'll see how that goes. Now, the last piece of news is Andor, and whilst we don't have a trailer, we don't have anything to really dissect, we do have a release date, which is April 22nd. That's going to be the premiere, and it has also been retitled. And I think this is big news for me personally. I think this is really important. Andor, a Star Wars story. That's the new name. Now, there's two things to take away from this. First off, it's obviously a link in to the idea that Andor Season 2 will terminate into Rogue One. That's the kind of base level important thing to take away from Andor, from the name change. I think that's the primary and maybe even the only reason. And I think that's very smart. I think seeing Andor, a Star Wars story, and then seeing Rogue One, a Star Wars story, and kind of thinking, those two are connected is a good thing. And that might be as far as it goes. But what I am hoping, and I really do hope this is the case, is that they're now realizing through the series that they're doing, through the other stories that they're doing, through the idea that they're kind of moving in different directions with content now, that they realize that actually there was never an issue. There was never an issue with the Star Wars story, the anthology Star Wars films. The issue was that they didn't give them justice and breathing room, because frankly, Solo failed not because it wasn't a phenomenal, like insanely impeachable is maybe the wrong word, impenetrable, sorry, movie. It wasn't a monolith. I'm not saying it's like the best thing to ever exist, but it was a good movie in my opinion, and some people will disagree. I think it was a good movie. Regardless of that, a lot of the reasons why people didn't go and watch Solo was twofold, really. You have the fact that The Last Jedi was not a success in terms of reviews. Monetarily, it was, but in terms of reviews and opinions, etc., it was not a success. And so people didn't want to go and watch the next movie. That was one. I think they should have understood that a bit more. They should have understood that it wasn't fully Solo's fault, so to speak. And I'm not saying that The Last Jedi should be changed or that it should be decanonized or that I didn't like some of the concepts. I do. But let's just call it what it was. If people don't like a movie, they don't like a movie. And a lot of people did not like The Last Jedi. Now, those people fall into certain categories, and we won't discuss that. But blaming the movie for that is sort of separate, right? People were boycotting Solo. It's just it did happen. I know the people who said it. They wanted to hurt Disney, right? Which is petty, but it's true. Also, the thing is, it dropped in one of the worst times in media history between, if I remember correctly, was it Infinity War and Deadpool 2? I think it was. I think it was Deadpool 2 and Infinity War that dropped not long either side of it, and it was a very silly thing, and I don't understand why Disney thought, like, Deadpool at the time they couldn't really do much about because Fox was still the owner of that. That's fine, but I don't know why they thought that they would drop it at the time, at the same time as the culmination of 10 years of storytelling with Infinity War. I do think it was that, if I'm remembering correctly, I think it was Infinity War. I'm sure it was 2019. I'm sure it was, because was it, or was it 2018? Well, it will have been 2018. That was right, because Infinity War came out 2018, and then 2019 was Endgame. Yes. So, yeah, like, wild to me, in all honesty. And so I think it's that kind of thing that you look at it and you think, well, yeah, Solo maybe wasn't the best movie to ever exist, but it was a good movie. And to kind of blame Solo for the failings of like corporate stuff, right? It wasn't really the movie. And yes, the movie was in development hell and all that type of stuff. You can go on forever discussing the actualities of Solo, but the thing is, it would have performed a lot better if they'd kept it in its usual slot at the end of the year, and I didn't really have much competition, and people would have forgotten about The Last Jedi because it was almost a year ago. In my opinion, that's how I would have done it. But I mean, I'm one person on the internet. I'm not saying that I'm right. I'm not saying that I'm better than all these strategists in Disneyland, so to speak. But yeah, it's one where I really don't quite understand what they were doing, and I hope that they kind of go back to this Star Wars story idea, because I think that's, I mean, not that they're not doing that, but I think the idea that they have a kind of refocused, re-upped courage in that branding is good to me, and I really hope that kind of shines through going forward, and I hope they kind of go back and kind of realize that the mistake was the quality slash of both their decisions and some of the content, rather than the opposite. It wasn't, the concept wasn't flawed, in my opinion. as Rogue One proved, it's my favorite Star Wars movie. Hence why I'm kind of excited about Andor season 2. But yeah, we don't have much else on Andor, so I'm kind of like just waiting with bated breath for a trailer. Speaking of trailers, we are also going to get the What If season 3 trailer on Monday apparently, and interestingly, Storm is going to be in it, which says a lot about where we're going with the MCU going forward, of course. And I'm very interested to see what happens in that and how it might inform what's happening with the X-Men post Secret Wars, which is already being kind of teased by Kevin Feige this week at D23 as well. So that kind of leaves us wrapped up for now. I'm unsure if we might be talking about What If next week, or something else might come up, but we'll see what happens in the week. Until next time, guys, thank you so much for watching/listening, and I'll see you later. Bye, guys.